How did that poor kid from Akron become one of the world's richest athletes? But here's the real question. Did he pay the price? Before we get to the video, subscribing to my channel and supporting me is very important to me. Enjoy the show. December 30th, 1984. Akron, Ohio. Gloria James, just 16 years old, held her newborn son in a cramped apartment with no heat. The electricity had been cut off 3 days ago. She whispered to baby LeBron, "We're going to make it, I promise." But she had no idea what that promise would cost them both. LeBron Raymond James entered this world with nothing, no father figure, no stable home, no money. What he had was a mother who refused to give up and a gift that would change everything. But gifts, especially extraordinary ones, always come with a price. The apartment on Hickory Street was barely 400 square feet. The walls were paper thin and you could hear everything. The neighbors arguing, babies crying, sirens wailing through the night. Gloria would count out quarters just to do laundry at the laundromat down the street. Sometimes she'd find herself 5 cents short and would have to choose between washing LeBron's clothes or her work uniform. There were nights when Gloria would skip dinner entirely, telling LeBron she wasn't hungry, just so he could have a full meal. She'd watch him eat peanut butter sandwiches while her own stomach growled, pretending she'd already eaten. The sacrifice started before LeBron could even walk, but Gloria never let him see her cry about it. LeBron learned to be invisible during those early years. When the landlord came knocking, he'd hide in the closet until Gloria could figure out what to say. When the electricity got cut off, he'd do his homework by candlelight, telling himself it was an adventure. When there was no food, he'd drink water to fill his stomach and tell Gloria he wasn't hungry. By age 8, LeBron had lived in 12 different apartments. 12. Can you imagine packing your life into garbage bags 12 times before your 9th birthday? Each move meant leaving friends behind, starting over at new schools, explaining to teachers why his address kept changing on the enrollment forms. Gloria worked 3 jobs, cleaning offices at night from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., serving food during lunch hours at a local diner, and babysitting on weekends for families who could afford childcare. Sometimes she made $5.115 an hour, sometimes she made nothing. There were weeks when she'd work 80 hours and still couldn't make rent. But what shaped LeBron most wasn't the poverty, it was watching his mother never give up. Even when everything was falling apart, Gloria would wake up every morning, look in the mirror, and tell herself, "Today is going to be better." LeBron saw that strength, absorbed it, and it became the foundation of everything he would become. But here's what nobody talks about. The real sacrifice began much earlier than anyone realizes. When LeBron was 9, something happened that would haunt him for decades. Gloria made a decision that broke her heart, but saved her son's future. She couldn't afford to feed him properly anymore. The apartment they were staying in had been condemned. Winter was coming, and they had nowhere to go. The eviction notice had been taped to their door for 3 days. Gloria stared at it every morning, hoping it would disappear. LeBron asked her what the big white paper meant, and she'd just say, "Nothing, baby. Mama's handling it." But she wasn't handling it, she was drowning. That's when Frank Walker entered their lives. Frank coached at the local rec center where LeBron had started playing basketball. He'd noticed this tall, athletic kid who came to the gym wearing the same clothes every day, shoes held together with duct tape, but who played with an intensity that was almost frightening for a 9-year-old. Frank also noticed that LeBron was often alone, no parent picking him up after practice, no one cheering from the sidelines during games. When he asked LeBron about it, the boy would just shrug and say, "Mama's working." One day Frank followed LeBron home. What he saw broke his heart. The condemned apartment building, the broken windows, the smell of mold and despair. He knocked on Gloria's door, and when she answered, he could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the weight of carrying the world on her shoulders at just 25 years old. "I want to help," Frank said simply. "Let LeBron stay with us for a while, until you get back on your feet." Gloria's pride wanted to say no. Her heart knew she had to say yes. So she did something that still makes LeBron emotional today when he talks about it. She sent him to live with Frank Walker's family, strangers who had offered to help through their local rec center. "I'll come get you when I figure things out," she told him, tears streaming down her face. The hardest part wasn't packing LeBron's few belongings into a paper bag. It wasn't explaining to him why Mama couldn't come with him. The hardest part was the look in his eyes. Not anger, not fear, but understanding. At 9 years old, LeBron understood that his mother was making the ultimate sacrifice, giving up the only thing that mattered to her so that he could have a chance. LeBron was 9 years old, watching his mother walk away, not knowing if she'd ever come back. That image is burned into his memory forever. The price of his future success. Learning abandonment before learning multiplication. But what he also learned that day was something that would define his entire life. Love sometimes means letting go. Gloria didn't abandon LeBron, she saved him. And that lesson would influence every major decision he'd make for the rest of his life. But what happened next changed everything, and it wasn't what you think. Frank Walker didn't just give LeBron a place to sleep. He gave him structure, discipline, and most importantly, basketball. Every morning at 6 a.m., Frank would wake LeBron up with the same words: champions don't sleep in. By age 10, LeBron was already different, taller, faster, stronger than kids 2 years older. But here's the part that made him who he is today. Frank made him earn everything. Want dinner? Finish your homework first. Want to watch TV? Complete your chores. Want to play basketball? Show me you deserve it. LeBron learned that nothing in life is free. Everything has a price. The Walker house was like entering a different world. There was food in the refrigerator, always. The lights worked when you flipped the switch. There was a schedule: breakfast at 7 a.m., school at 8 a.m., homework at 4 p.m., basketball practice at 6 p.m., dinner at 8 p.m., bed by 10 p.m. For the first time in his life, LeBron experienced stability, but stability came with expectations. Frank wasn't just housing LeBron out of charity. He saw potential and was determined to develop it. Every morning started with a 2-mile run around the neighborhood. Your body is your temple, Frank would say. Treat it like one. Then came chores: making the bed, washing dishes, taking out trash. Success starts with taking care of small things, Frank explained. School became non-negotiable. Frank would check LeBron's homework every single night, making him redo assignments that weren't his best effort. Good enough isn't good enough when you're capable of great, he'd say. LeBron's grades went from C's and D's to A's and B's within 2 months. But basketball was where the real transformation happened. Frank had played college ball and understood the game at a level that most Rutgers center coaches didn't. He taught LeBron fundamentals: footwork, shooting form, court vision. More importantly, he taught him basketball IQ. Physical gifts will take you far, Frank said during one practice, but understanding the game will take you everywhere. Frank also taught LeBron about sacrifice. Every weekend, while other kids played video games or watched TV, LeBron was in the gym. Frank would set up different drills: shooting from every spot on the court, defensive slides until his legs burned, rebounding drills that taught him to fight for every ball. Champions do things that others won't do, Frank repeated daily. That's why they become champions. When Gloria finally got back on her feet and reunited with LeBron 8 months later, he wasn't the same scared little boy. He was focused, determined, and carried himself differently. But there was something else in his eyes, a hunger that would never be satisfied. Gloria noticed the change immediately. LeBron spoke differently, more confidently. He carried himself like he belonged somewhere. When she asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up, his answer was immediate: the best basketball player in the world. Not a basketball player, not a good basketball player, the best. Frank had given LeBron more than temporary shelter. He'd given him a blueprint for greatness. The price? Childhood innocence. At 10 years old, LeBron was already thinking like a professional athlete. At 11 years old, LeBron made his first major sacrifice for greatness. While other kids played video games and watched cartoons, he was in the gym at 5 a.m. every single day. His childhood, gone. His free time, non-existent. But his skills, extraordinary. The routine became religion. Wake up at 5 a.m., gym until 7 a.m., school until 3 p.m., homework until 5 p.m., team practice until 8 p.m., individual workout until 10 p.m., sleep, repeat, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Other kids started calling him obsessed. Teachers worried he was pushing too hard. Even Gloria wondered if he was missing out on being a normal kid. But LeBron had tasted greatness during those 8 months with Frank, and he was addicted to the feeling of getting better every single day. Yet the biggest price he paid wasn't physical, it was emotional, and it almost destroyed him. By 8th grade, LeBron was already being called the chosen one. Sports Illustrated put him on their cover while he was still in high school. Can you imagine being 17 years old and having the entire world watching your every move, expecting perfection, waiting for you to fail? But before Sports Illustrated, before the national attention, there was something else that nearly broke him. It happened during his freshman year at St. Vincent St. Mary High School. LeBron was 14 years old, 6'2", and already dominating varsity basketball. Local newspapers were writing about him. College scouts were coming to his games. Everything seemed perfect. Then his father tried to come back into his life. Anthony McClelland had been absent for LeBron's entire childhood. No birthday cards, no Christmas presents, no phone calls, nothing. For 14 years LeBron had wondered what he'd done wrong to make his father leave. Was he not good enough? Not worth staying for? Now, suddenly, McClelland wanted a relationship. He showed up at LeBron's school, claiming he wanted to be part of his son's life. The media attention around LeBron meant that McClelland could potentially profit from their relationship. Book deals, interviews, appearances, all opportunities that came with being LeBron's father. The meeting between father and son lasted 20 minutes. McClelland talked about being proud, about wanting to help, about being there for LeBron's journey to the NBA. LeBron listened, hoping to feel some connection, some spark of the father-son bond he'd always craved. Instead, he felt nothing, or worse than nothing, he felt used. "Where were you when I needed you?" LeBron asked quietly. "Where were you when Mum was crying every night because she couldn't pay rent?" Where were you when I was living with strangers because we had nowhere to go? McClelland had excuses, explanations, justifications, but no real answers. LeBron walked away from that meeting, understanding something profound. Blood doesn't make you family, being there does. Frank Walker had been more of a father in 8 months than McClelland had been in 14 years. But the encounter left scars. LeBron became obsessive about control. If he couldn't control who stayed in his life, he'd control everything else: his training, his diet, his schedule, his career decisions. The price of abandonment issues, perfectionism that bordered on impossible. The pressure broke other teenage phenoms, but LeBron, he absorbed it, internalized it, and let it fuel him. The price: he never got to be a normal teenager. He never experienced the joy of just playing for fun. Every shot, every game, every decision was analyzed by millions. High school games became spectacles. Opposing teams would specifically game plan to stop one player, a 16-year-old kid. College coaches would fly across the country just to watch him practice. ESPN started broadcasting his games nationally. The attention was intoxicating and terrifying. LeBron's teammates felt the pressure too. Some embraced it, thriving under the spotlight. Others cracked. The chemistry that should have been natural for teenagers became forced. Every interaction was scrutinized. Were they really friends, or were they just riding LeBron's coattails? The isolation was crushing. LeBron couldn't go to parties like other kids. There might be pictures. He couldn't make mistakes. They'd end up on SportsCenter. He couldn't even have normal teenage relationships. Every girl who showed interest might just want to be famous. So he learned to compartmentalize. School LeBron was focused and serious. Basketball LeBron was dominant and confident. But alone in his room at night, he was still just a kid who missed having a normal life. When he went straight from high school to the NBA, he carried the hopes of an entire city on his shoulders. Cleveland hadn't won a major sports championship in decades. They weren't just drafting a basketball player, they were drafting their salvation. The weight was immediate. His first NBA game drew the largest television audience for a regular season game in years. His jersey became the fastest-selling rookie jersey in NBA history. Fans lined up for hours just to get a glimpse of him during warm-ups. But with great expectations come great opportunities for disappointment. And LeBron's first few years in Cleveland were filled with both. But success brought new demons, and the price got steeper. LeBron leads Cleveland to the NBA Finals for the first time. He's just 22 years old, the youngest player to ever carry a team that far. But they get swept by San Antonio. 4 games, 4 losses. LeBron averages 22 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Incredible numbers for most players. For LeBron, it wasn't enough. The journey to that finals was magical. LeBron single-handedly carried Cleveland past Detroit in the Eastern Conference Finals with one of the greatest individual performances in playoff history. Game 5 against the Pistons, LeBron scored 29 of Cleveland's final 30 points, including all 25 points in overtime. The building was electric. The city believed. This was it, their moment. But the finals against San Antonio exposed every weakness. Cleveland's roster was built around LeBron and hope. The Spurs had Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, champions who knew how to win. They had a system that had been refined over years. Cleveland had LeBron and desperation. That night, after the final loss, LeBron sat in the empty locker room for 2 hours, alone, crying. Not because he lost, but because he felt like he'd failed an entire city. The weight of expectation had become crushing. This is when the real price of greatness revealed itself. The silence in that locker room was deafening. His teammates had showered and left. The media had finished their questions. The building was empty, except for LeBron and his thoughts. He kept replaying moments, missed shots, turnovers, opportunities that slipped away. But the worst part wasn't the basketball failures. It was thinking about all the people who had believed in him. The kid who wore his jersey to school every day. The factory worker who saved up to buy season tickets just to watch him play. The grandmother who had never watched basketball until LeBron gave her a reason to care. He had let them all down. Every superstar athlete deals with pressure. But LeBron carried something heavier. The burden of being the chosen one since he was a child. He never asked for that title. It was given to him, and with it came the expectation that he would save Cleveland, revolutionize basketball, and never, ever fail. But failure is exactly what happened, not just once but repeatedly. The 2008 playoffs, lost in the second round to Boston. The 2009 playoffs, lost in the Eastern Conference Finals to Orlando. The 2010 playoffs, lost in the second round to Boston again. Each loss felt like a personal indictment. ESPN analysts dissected his performances. Talk radio hosts questioned his clutch gene. Fans began to wonder if LeBron could ever actually win the big one. The criticism became personal and vicious. He was called soft, selfish, a stat padder who cared more about individual numbers than team success. Every decision was scrutinized: his shot selection, his body language, even his celebrations when the team was winning. The pressure was suffocating. LeBron couldn't go anywhere in Cleveland without being reminded of the expectations. Grocery store, gas station, restaurant, everywhere he went, people would ask the same question: when are you going to bring us a championship? That question haunted him, because the honest answer was becoming clearer each year: maybe never. Not with this roster, not with this organization, not with the way things were currently constructed in Cleveland. And then came the decision that changed everything, and nearly destroyed his reputation forever. July 8, 2010. The decision. LeBron announced on live television that he was leaving Cleveland to join Miami. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Cleveland fans burned his jerseys. The owner called him a traitor. His hometown turned against him overnight. But here's what people didn't understand. LeBron was 25 years old and had never won anything. 7 years of carrying Cleveland's hopes, and he had nothing to show for it. The price of staying loyal to a city that couldn't build a championship team around him? His entire legacy. The decision to do the decision was LeBron's first major public relations disaster. The idea seemed innocent enough: announce his choice on live television and raise money for charity. But the execution was tone-deaf. An hour-long special to announce he was leaving Cleveland to a national audience, while Cavaliers fans watched their hero abandon them on live TV. The moment LeBron said, "I'm taking my talents to South Beach," something broke in Cleveland that night. It wasn't just about losing a basketball player, it was about losing hope. For 7 years, LeBron had been their symbol that good things could happen to Cleveland, that loyalty and patience would be rewarded, that someday they'd be champions. In one sentence, that dream died. The reaction was swift and merciless. Dan Gilbert, the Cavaliers owner, published an open letter calling LeBron's decision a cowardly betrayal and guaranteeing that Cleveland would win a championship before LeBron ever did. ESPN reporters called it the most selfish decision in sports history. Fans created videos of themselves burning LeBron jerseys and posting them online. But the worst part wasn't the public criticism, it was the personal attacks. Death threats started arriving. People questioned his character, his upbringing, his loyalty to everything he'd ever claimed to care about. The kid who had grown up in Akron, who had never forgotten where he came from, was suddenly painted as a traitor to his own community. So he made the hardest decision of his life. He chose his career over his hometown. He chose winning over comfort. He chose championships over being liked. The price? Becoming the most hated athlete in America overnight. But the hatred only made him stronger, and what happened next shocked everyone. Miami. 2 championships in 4 years. But even winning came with a price. Every victory was questioned. He needed help to win. Every loss was magnified. He can't do it alone. LeBron couldn't win. If he stayed in Cleveland, he was loyal but couldn't win. If he left for Miami, he was a winner but disloyal. The price of greatness? Never being allowed to just be human. But LeBron learned something in Miami that changed him forever. He learned that you can't please everyone. You can't make everyone happy. You can only control your effort, your preparation, and your response to adversity. So he stopped trying to be liked, and started focusing on being legendary. The transformation didn't happen overnight. It started in the summer of 2011, after the devastating finals loss to Dallas. LeBron disappeared from public view for 2 months. No interviews, no appearances, no social media. He was rebuilding himself from the ground up. He hired a sports psychologist to work on his mental approach. He changed his workout routine, focusing on post moves and mid-range shooting, the areas where Dallas had exposed him. Most importantly, he changed his mindset about what it meant to be great. In Cleveland, LeBron had tried to be everything to everyone: the hometown hero, the loyal son, the savior who could single-handedly end decades of championship drought. In Miami, he learned to be selfish about his greatness. Not selfish with the ball, but selfish about his commitment to winning. The 2012 season was different. LeBron was different. He was more focused, more aggressive, more willing to take over games when necessary. The team chemistry that had been forced in their first year together became natural. Wade accepted a secondary role. Bosh found his place as the perfect third option. And LeBron, he became the player everyone always said he could be. The 2012 finals against Oklahoma City was LeBron's redemption. He dominated the series, averaging 28.6 points, 10.2 rebounds, and 7.4 assists. More importantly, he was clutch when it mattered most. Game 6 in Boston during the Eastern Conference Finals had been the turning point. 45 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists in an elimination game. "When you're great, you deliver greatness," he said after that game. Finally, after 8 years in the NBA, LeBron was a champion. The celebration was everything he'd dreamed it would be. Confetti falling, trophy hoisted, vindication after years of criticism. But even in that moment of pure joy, LeBron was thinking about what came next. One championship wasn't enough. He needed more. The 2013 championship against San Antonio was even sweeter. It was a 7-game series that came down to the final seconds. Ray Allen's miracle three-pointer in Game 6 saved their season, but it was LeBron's consistency throughout the series that won it. He was now a 2-time champion, and the conversation began to shift from "Can LeBron win?" to "How many can LeBron win?" 2014, the decision that would define his legacy. He was going back to Cleveland, not because it was easy, but because it was the hardest thing he could do. He was going to try to deliver that promised championship to a city that had suffered for 52 years. But nobody knew the real reason he went back, and when the truth came out, it changed everything. The real reason LeBron returned to Cleveland wasn't just basketball, it was personal. His kids were getting older, and he wanted them to understand where they came from. He wanted them to see that no matter how successful you become, you never forget your roots. The price of teaching that lesson, risking everything he'd built. LeBron James Jr. was 9 years old when his father returned to Cleveland, the same age LeBron had been when he learned his first lesson about sacrifice from his mother. But unlike his father, Bronny was growing up with privilege, private schools, and every advantage money could buy. LeBron worried that his son would never understand struggle, never appreciate what it meant to fight for something. Taking his family back to Cleveland meant exposing them to a different reality. The pressure, the expectations, the weight of an entire city's hopes. In Miami, they could live relatively normal lives. In Cleveland, they were the first family of basketball, and everything they did mattered to millions of people. But there was something deeper driving LeBron's decision. It was a conversation he'd had with his mother, Gloria, in 2013. She had asked him a simple question. "When you're old and retired, what do you want people to remember about you?" LeBron had given the expected answer: championships, records, greatness on the court. But Gloria shook her head. "That's not what I'm asking," she said. "What do you want people to remember about your character? About who you were as a person, not just as a player?" That question haunted LeBron, because the honest answer was complicated. In Miami, he had won championships, but he had also taken the easy path. He had joined other superstars instead of elevating the players around him. He had chosen comfort over challenge. Returning to Cleveland was his chance to rewrite that narrative, to show that he could lead, not just follow, to prove that he could win without stacking the deck in his favor. The price? Everything he had accomplished in Miami would be overshadowed by what happened next in Cleveland. 2016, NBA Finals, Cleveland versus Golden State. The Warriors had won 73 games, the best regular season record in NBA history. They were up 3-1 in the finals. No team had ever come back from 3-1 down in the finals, ever. The Warriors weren't just good, they were historically great. Stephen Curry had just become the first unanimous MVP in NBA history. Klay Thompson was arguably the best shooter in the league. Draymond Green was the defensive anchor. They had revolutionized basketball with their three-point shooting and pace of play. After Game 4, the locker room was a funeral. Players sat with their heads in their hands. 4 years of building toward this moment, and it was slipping away. The curse would continue. Cleveland would remain championshipless. LeBron would be remembered as the guy who came home but couldn't deliver. That's when LeBron stood up and made a speech that would define not just the series, but his entire legacy. "I know you're thinking it's over," he said to his teammates. "I know you're thinking about going home, about the season ending, about letting the city down. But let me tell you something. This is where legends are made. Not when everything goes according to plan, but when everything falls apart and you have to find a way to put it back together." Game 5. Cleveland wins. LeBron 41 points. Game 6. Cleveland wins. LeBron 41 points. Game 7. Winner takes all. With 1:5:50 left in Game 7, LeBron made a play that defined his entire career. Kyrie Irving had just hit the biggest shot in Cleveland history, a three-pointer that put them ahead 92-89. But Golden State wasn't done. They were driving for a potential game-tying three. Andre Iguodala had a clear path to the basket. Then LeBron did something that shouldn't have been physically possible. From behind, he chased down Iguodala and blocked his shot, a block that traveled the length of the court in 3.2 seconds. The physics shouldn't work. The timing was impossible. But LeBron made it happen. That block wasn't just athletic ability. It was 32 years of sacrifice, struggle and determination compressed into one moment. Every morning he woke up at 5 a.m. as a kid. Every time he chose training over friends. Every criticism, every doubt, every person who said he couldn't do it, all of that fueled that one impossible block. When the final buzzer sounded, LeBron collapsed on the court, sobbing uncontrollably. 52 years. The longest championship drought in Cleveland sports history was over. LeBron had kept his promise. But the price of that moment, it nearly broke him physically and emotionally. After Cleveland won the championship, LeBron collapsed in the tunnel, not from exhaustion, from emotion. He had finally delivered on the promise he made to Cleveland. The weight that had been on his shoulders for 7 years was finally lifted. He cried for 20 minutes straight. But here's what nobody saw. the physical toll was devastating. LeBron's body was breaking down. His back, his knees, his ankles, everything hurt. He was 31 years old but felt like he was 40. The price of carrying a franchise, a city, and his own legacy, his body was paying the bill. That's when he made another controversial decision. He left Cleveland again, this time for Los Angeles, not for basketball reasons, for business reasons. He was thinking beyond basketball, building an empire that would last long after his playing days ended. And that's when the real transformation began. From athlete to mogul, Los Angeles wasn't just about the Lakers, it was about Hollywood, media, business ventures, and building generational wealth. LeBron wasn't just playing basketball anymore, he was creating a brand that would make him a billionaire. Spring Hill Entertainment, Blaze Pizza, Liverpool FC, real estate investments, media companies. By 2022, LeBron became the first active NBA player to reach billionaire status. But even that success came with a price. The move to Los Angeles was strategic in every way. LeBron knew his playing career was in its final phase, and he needed to position himself for life after basketball. But that calculation came at a cost. His first season with the Lakers was a disaster. The price? His basketball legacy became secondary to his business empire. Critics started saying he cared more about money than championships. Every business move was scrutinized. Every investment was questioned. The kid who just wanted to play basketball had become a corporate empire. But here's what those critics didn't understand. LeBron wasn't just building wealth for himself. He was building generational security for his family and creating opportunities for others who came from nothing, just like he did. The I Promise School in Akron was LeBron's most personal project. He partnered with the Akron Public Schools to create a school specifically for at-risk children, kids who reminded him of himself at that age. The school provided free meals, transportation, uniforms, and even college scholarships for graduating students. 2020 brought the Lakers their first championship in a decade. LeBron, at 35, proved he could still be the best player on a championship team. But even that victory came with asterisks. The bubble championship during COVID, questions about the legitimacy of the season, debates about whether it counted the same as a normal championship. The real price he paid wasn't what you think. It was the price of never being allowed to stop. Today, at 40 years old, LeBron is still playing at an elite level, still chasing championships, still proving doubters wrong. While other athletes his age are retired and enjoying their wealth, LeBron is still sacrificing his body, still facing criticism, still carrying expectations. The price of being the chosen one. You're never allowed to choose when it ends. He's playing alongside his son Bronny now, something that should be pure joy. But even that gets criticized. Nepotism, unfair advantage, taking a roster spot from someone more deserving. LeBron can't even enjoy a historic moment with his son without facing judgment. At 40, LeBron's daily routine is more demanding than it was at 25. 2 hours of recovery treatment before practice, ice baths, stretching, massage therapy, and careful monitoring of every muscle and joint. His diet is perfect. His sleep schedule is regimented. His training is scientific. But here's the twist that changes everything about his story. The real price LeBron paid wasn't his childhood, his body, or his reputation. The real price was learning that no matter what you achieve, no matter how much you give, no matter how many people you help, there will always be someone who thinks it's not enough. And you know what? He's okay with that. Because the scared 9-year-old boy who watched his mother walk away taught him the most important lesson of all. The only person whose opinion matters is the one looking back at you in the mirror. When LeBron looks in that mirror, he sees someone who kept every promise he ever made. He promised Gloria he'd take care of her. She never worked another minimum wage job. He promised Cleveland he'd bring them a championship. 2016 happened. He promised his kids he'd show them how to work for everything they want. They're watching him do it at 40 years old. From $0 to $1 billion, from abandoned to icon, from Akron to global legend. The price he paid, everything. The price he'd pay again, everything, because that's what greatness costs. And LeBron James decided long ago that he was willing to pay it. But the story isn't over. At 40, he's still writing new chapters, still paying new prices, still proving that the scared little boy from Akron refuses to be defined by where he started. The question isn't what price he paid to become great. The question is, what price is he willing to pay to stay great? And based on everything we've seen, the answer is simple: whatever it takes. That's the real price of greatness. Not money, not fame, not success, but the willingness to sacrifice everything, over and over again, for the chance to be legendary. LeBron James didn't just become a billionaire. He became proof that no matter where you start, no matter what obstacles you face, no matter how many times you fail, if you're willing to pay the price, anything is possible. The poor kid from Akron didn't just make it. He redefined what making it means. And the price, worth every single sacrifice,